all coming down in the temple site in an actual place, but that Daniel talks about, and you can find in Luke 21 and Matthew 24, where Jesus says, the abomination of desolation that is set up in the holy place. And the Antichrist goes there and says that he is God himself. And he's totally indwelt by Satan himself. You find the significance of this point on this point of real estate on this earth, and there's only one place on the earth that God has said he would dwell with men forever. And here, this Satan comes and actually causes almost everybody on earth to actually believe that he's really God, and he goes to the place where God himself says he'll dwell. In fact, when in Satan's "I will" speech in Isaiah 14, and he talks about, I will set myself in the sides of the north, in the mount of the assembly. That phraseology, the sides of the north, are used exactly for the temple in Mount Zion. It's actually placed in the sides of the north. So actually, by coming to that place, Satan has done, or will do, something that has never been done, and something so amazingly abominable that you have to mark the place with the number 666. It's just the place where it ends up happening. But that connection between all the players, though, Islam, or in the Hadith Quran that say, when you go out to fight to bring Islam to every corner of the earth, those infidels who don't accept the Quran and don't accept the faith, their heads must leave their shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then you look at Revelation that talks about the martyrs that are beheaded for the faith, and you already have a ready-made sort of religious system that would do that.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Freed, and that's already set up. You see that it has a big part in the end-time scenario.
Right.
Right along with what's going on in Judaism, and it's actually existing along with it.
Brother Dave, we've got about 8 minutes left in our show, and I want you to talk a little bit about the situation with the Ark of the Covenant, because that's created a lot of buzz. But right before you do that, before we leave your calendar dating, I got to ask you a question. I don't know if anybody else is asking about this, but being Dr. Future and being Future Quake, looking at the here and now and beyond, is there anything just gee-whiz factor when you've plugged in things like 2008 nautical miles, 2009, 2012? Have you found anything that's piqued your interest there?
Well, going back to the name of Jerusalem itself, the actual temple site that David bought was from a Jebusite, and Jebus being, a threshing floor, a circle, a crop circle, right? Well, all the crop circles that you'll find, the majority of them, 99.9% of them occur in an area in England called Wiltshire, which is 33 degrees. It's a swath of 33 degrees, 33 minutes, or just 33 degrees, 0 minutes from the Temple Mount. And at 33 degrees, 0 minutes, that's 1,980 nautical miles away. The crop circle phenomena occurred, basically was coined in 1980 when they started appearing there in Wiltshire. Mm-hmm. Then you find them to the extent of 2012, almost 2015 nautical miles away, which fit into the scenario again, 33 degrees, 33 minutes. What you're looking at then is that stamp of 33. On the Gregorian calendar, 33 is where Jesus, when he was himself 33 years old, died and resurrected. If you look at mathematically this whole idea of the Trinity, and the Messiah being 1/3 of the Trinity, and his resurrection actually being a stamp of a third, 100% of something as a whole, so 1/3 of it is 33.3333, percent. So 33 is actually a stamp of a third, part of the third of the Trinity. His resurrection is connected to that, and I think that 2012 is also a statement of that too, because it actually fits into dimensionally the third of the earth. The idea of a third of time, actually counting from that manifestation of Christ on earth to 2012 is actually another statement of the third again. I think what we're looking at, and this is kind of going on a limb, is the other, the resurrection of the rest of his body, of being the body of Christ.
Oh.
Who would also necessarily fit into that idea of being resurrected with the stamp of a third on us. And finding that almost, well, this is blowing my mind too when I look at the whole idea of how this fits into the Illuminati's plan for us, the reason the United States was actually put on the earth as a power. That all fits into the same statement, but I don't have enough time to actually go into that.
Well, any way you could ever come back and share some of these things with us, to go
yeah,
I know you're incredibly busy, and we hate to bother you, but we've got so many things we want to talk about. But if you can just give us a little hint about the Ark of the Covenant in 3 to 4 minutes before we wrap up, about what you found on it.
It is. You find the first description of the creation of the Ark of the Covenant in an amazing place, Exodus 25, ending on verse 20. So you have the same number of the sacred cubit, even in the placement of the Ark, which held the
that's far out.
Law. And part of that law was you must keep perfect weights and measures to convert them or to corrupt them in any way was an abomination to God. So the standards, the weights and measures were actually placed inside the Ark. Not just the Decalogue, but the whole rest of Deuteronomy. That a scroll itself was actually placed in the Ark, and it had this measurement system as part of the law. And so this idea of where the Ark is still connected to that sacred cubit. And you find that if you had a King James Bible that was written before 1885, you could find a statement in the Western Canon that said, Jeremiah, this is in 2 Maccabees, chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. It says, Jeremiah, when he knew the temple was going to be destroyed, he took the tabernacle, and he took the Ark of the Covenant itself, and he placed it at the base of Mount Nebo, and he put it in a cave, and then he covered up the cave. And then it says after that people went to try to mark the way, and when Jeremiah found out this, he said, well, it's not going to ever be found again, because God supernaturally is keeping it hidden until his people are brought back out of diaspora, out of the dispersion, to Israel again. And then he says, when that happens, the Ark will be found, and also the Ruach HaKodesh, the glory, the pillar that was of fire at night and cloud by day that dwelt over the mercy seat, that would appear again. So he's making a statement that this Ark could actually be brought back to Jerusalem. Well, notice, though, an interesting idea that Mount Nebo, if you actually go look at a map, is in a perfect line in latitude from the Temple Mount. And in fact, if you draw a line perfectly from the Temple Mount, staying exactly on the same latitude as the Holy of Holies, and extending that line to 25.20 nautical miles, you'll end up 1,260 yards from the summit of Mount Nebo, 1,260 feet above sea level on the flanks of Mount Nebo, which is half 2520, which is the number of the sacred cubit only times 10. But what you'll notice is that even the nautical mile system of 25.20 nautical miles fits the ancient stadia of the Greeks and the Romans. And it was, if you measure it in stadia, 252 stadia. I've got two different readings on it. It could be 252.0 or 252.252 ancient stadia. So not only in antiquity does this measurement follow the actual story, the only one you're going to find of where the Ark was put, but it also fits a modern calibration and ancient calibration. And what's also interesting is you find it not just in Maccabees, you find it in approximately Boaz, Baruch, second Baruch. It's the same description. But it's said that Moses' body was actually buried in a valley, which is exactly north of Mount Nebo. And then it says that when Joshua crossed Jordan, he crossed it at a place called the Plains of Moab, and the last place that they were camped was called, if I can remember it, Beth Jeshimoth, which you can find on the map now, and is actually lower than Mount Nebo. So I believe that the line that they crossed and had parted the Jordan when the Ark actually crossed is exactly the same latitude where the Holy of Holies is and was. And that when you look at when Elijah parted the Jordan, he crossed to the same area where Moses' body had disappeared on the flames.
Isn't that amazing?
So
Wow.
Jeremiah actually may have placed the Ark in the old sepulcher of Moses, and that Moses' body had been taken out by the Archangel Michael, which Jude says in the last, the book of Jude, says that actually occurred. And we know Moses as in existence because he appears as these two witnesses on Transfiguration along with Elijah.
Right.
So if I was putting two and two together, who would be the one prophet who, if he was around, would be most worthy to recapture or regain the Ark, to recover the Ark? Well, it would be Moses.
Right. That's right. Brother David, I hate to have to close it. We're at the end of our time and beyond. We'd love to have you back to talk about this further.
Yeah, this was fascinating. Oh, my goodness.
We just really highly regard your work. In closing, could you please tell our listeners how they can get a hold of your book?
It's on Amazon, and it's available now. For a long time, it was just pre-order.
The Temple at the Center of Time.
Well, at the Center of Time.
And go to, watchyourwebsite.com? It's
watchyourwebsite.com, I believe. If you just Google Watch Your Website, you'll be able to find it. There's just kind of a screwy sort of URL nowadays. And
it is a classic. It is a classic you need to go to. Brother David, thank you so much for blessing us here. And it is, as much as your busy time will permit for you to come back and comment, we would certainly love to have you back.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for blessing us and our listeners tonight on Future Quake.